Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the program. The Atheist Experience is live February the 8th, 2004. I'm your host, Martin Wagner. Ashley Perrien is my co-host.
Afternoon.
And good to have you back.
Thank you.
Yes,
good to be back.
Yes, we actually figured how things work in the studio today because you were back. Boy, that was a fire drill last week, I tell you. But this show is sponsored by Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA is still trying to work out where we are going to have our weekly meetings since the demise of Hot Jumbo Bagels. Today they had it, I think it was some Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, so it's called Joy East,
down Riverside.
Down Riverside and wherever.
Yeah, which is closer to me, so which I would have been to.
Yeah, it was
been tucked away in my little.
It was actually a fairly nice place. I think we're going to still try out, some different places and see, because we can't go there next week.
Right.
At least we can't have the room. I think we're going to try out a few different places and just kind of eventually decide where we want to have it. So.
Okay. So.
As of right now, if you want to find out about our meetings, you probably want to join our email list, the Atheist list, and we'll have announcements on there of where it's going to be.
Okay. But of course, the Atheist list is for atheists only.
Yes.
And not for theists. So that we have an Ask an Atheist list.
Yes.
For theists can join up and ask questions. But all right, and we'll try if it's possible to put them up on like the upcoming events page on the website. We'll do that too. Yeah. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on with the weekly meetings, the Sunday morning meetings. But on the third Sunday of each month, and that would be next Sunday, we still are having our lecture series, and that is in the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe. So our lecture series will be next Sunday, being the third Sunday of February, and our speaker will be Don Baker, talking about morality. So the lecture series is still happening the third Sunday of each month at the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe. And the regular weekly meetings, as soon as we know, you will know. And that will be a good thing. So I wouldn't mind meeting at a Chinese restaurant for lunch every Sunday. But
yeah, it was a good place.
Yeah. Could be a situation where we end up bouncing between a couple places.
It's possible. I would kind of be against that. I'd like to have someplace solid.
Yeah, it would be nice.
You know that every Sunday morning you're going to get up and go to wherever. Mm-hmm. It's kind of nice rather than think of, okay, it's a third Sunday now, I've got to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, so. Oh, well. Okay. But we'll work on that and get that all together. But other regular weekly stuff that the ACA does, of course, include Godless Gamers every Monday night to the home of Russell and Virginia Glasser at 7 o'clock p.m. and ACA Happy Hour, which takes place every Thursday evening at Antonio's Tex-Mex near the intersection of Highway 183 and I-35.
Save this Thursday.
Which is not happening.
Okay.
We're so organized. Okay, what's happening this Thursday that we're not having them?
I don't know if you know this or you're going to get.
No one tells me anything. I'm just a TV show host.
This upcoming Thursday is the 12th. February 12th.
Oh, that's right, Darwin Day. So
exactly.
We gonna do the fun thing?
And there happens to be a Darwin bar, I believe it's something like that on 6th Street.
Darwin's on 6th Street. Are we going there?
Yes.
All right. So, okay, fun.
So, Darwin's on 6th Street.
For the Darwin State Party. So I guess it's what, like 7:30ish or something?
Or? They open at 8.
Okay. So then we'll turn up after then.
8 o'clock on.
But then, of course, being a bar, that's like going to be our, you can't, the members who have families can't bring the kids.
Yeah.
Well, actually, maybe, I think you can. Well, actually, hang on. I think you can. I think it's legal in Texas if you're a parent.
Really?
You can bring.
You could bring children into the bar?
If you're legal, they can't drink, of course.
Well,
but they can actually come in.
Okay.
I think that might be the
interesting.
Case. Maybe someone will straighten.
It may not necessarily be the atmosphere for them. I don't know if they're going to have music playing or smoke and all that kind of stuff.
Well, anyway, it's a Darwin Day celebration at Darwin's. I guess this coming Thursday at 8 on 6th Street. That'll be fun. But every Thursday that it does happen to be Darwin Day, that's Antonio's Tex-Mex. It starts about 7:30 p.m. there, and people trickle in all evening long, so listen for the loud, boisterous table of atheists, and that'll be us. So, okay. So hopefully, without any other further last-minute changes to the... There's also, of course, the Nonprofits, which is our bi-weekly internet audio show, which takes place at the atheistnetwork.com website. It's a live MP3 stream. The next episode will be February 14th, this coming Sunday. And if you cannot somehow log on to the live stream from the atheistnetwork.com website, Russell, the producer, has thoughtfully put a direct link to the live feed from our website on the radio show page, atheist-community.org. You just go to the radio show page, and you can get to the live feed from there. But on the atheistnetwork.com website, of course, there's also an interactive like JavaScript chat room feature where you can interact with the guys on the program. That is The Nonprofits, hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Russell Glasser, and then whoever else is there that day at Russell's. Big show, 90 minutes of news analysis and arguing back and forth about current events and stuff. And if you go to our website and the radio show page, you can listen to about the last half dozen or so shows. So this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock p.m., The Nonprofits, hosted by Jeff D. Okay, and last but not least, the University Atheists and Agnostics, whom we assume still exist. We haven't really heard from Charles or Crystal or any of the other movers and shakers of the group since the spring semester has started up at UT, but that we know of. It is still a registered UT student organization, the University Atheists and Agnostics. There's their website, bottom of your screen, studentorgs.utexas.edu/UAA. Log on to there. Maybe they've updated it. Maybe it's got, we could have easily checked this ourselves, but we never seem to remember.
Yeah.
But meeting places, if you are a registered UT student or faculty member and you're looking for a student group for atheists, looking to meet other atheist students, this has actually proven to be a pretty decent one. They've been experiencing some growing pains, but are still very committed to making it work, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
At least they were last time I talked to them, which was months and months ago, before finals intruded on their lives. So we'll see. Hopefully that's still a going concern. Okay, I guess that does it for the regular announcements. For more about our organization, of course, you can visit atheist-community.org on the web. Some interesting, some old business. First off, if this is your first time ever to view the show, if you're channel surfing and you happen to bump into us, we are the Atheist Experience. This is a 90-minute live call-in talk show about atheism. We are the one alternative on the airwaves to the sort of the nonstop Christian programming that you see. There are something like half a dozen 24-hour a day, 7-day a week cable channels devoted to Christianity on Time Warner cable, at least if you have digital. And we're the one 90-minute a week alternative to that message. And so we're here to talk about atheism and why people don't, the people who don't believe in God, why we don't, that sort of thing. Clear up any misconceptions that folks might have. Talk about some stuff. However, if you're a first-time viewer, you should know we've been on the air a little over 6 years. And in that time, we have gathered up all of the most common questions that we tend to get from theists, from believers. We have assembled them all into a frequently asked questions page, a fact page, and we have slapped that up on our website. So if you go to the website right down there at the bottom of your monitor and click on FAQ, then it will take you to a good handful of questions, which seem to be the most common questions that Christians and other believers have for atheists.
Yes.
Like, why don't you believe in God? What do atheists believe in? What's the difference between being an agnostic and being an atheist? Stuff like that, right? So there's a good chance that we may have already answered your question if this is your first time ever to encounter atheists on television and have some questions for us. But if not, we're a live call-in show, and a little ways into the show, we'll start taking calls and to talk about stuff. So there's that. But also don't forget that we have our viewer feedback address, our TV viewer email address at tv@atheist-community.org. If you try to call in and you can't get through, that usually happens. By the end of the show, there's at least 2 people hanging on the line that we're not able to get to. Try that email address, tv@atheist-community.org. Don't be scared. We won't bite your head off, but we will. The email bag has been a little bit dry lately, but we will answer sincerely every piece of mail we get. And the good ones we bring on the air and we answer them on the air and that sort of thing. So tv@atheist-community.org is your viewer feedback address for this program. Now, finally, came across something very impressive on the web some weeks ago. And I just wanted to toss it out there before we get into the news, because otherwise I'll forget. I've been trying to bring this up for like the last 2 episodes, and we get caught up in other stuff. But I first found about this on James Randi's website.
Okay.
And he was contacted by an 18-year-old atheist, by a kid by the name of Jacob Spinney. And what he had done was he had gone to humor this friend of his, these Christian friends of his at his high school. He had gone to this, Campus Christ, just some student-oriented Jesus thing.
Yeah,
I don't think it was Campus Crusade for Christ, but something like that. And you know, it got around that he was an atheist, and some people were interested in that. And it's one of these sort of itinerant traveling youth ministers. I remember that when I was a teenager and going to church, that these guys would pop up every now and again. There are these Christian youth ministers who are just like on the road.
Okay.
And that's how they do it. You know, they go from church in church and area in area in area, and they have their little, you know, revival thing they do, and it's geared towards youth, right? And so this youth, he spent some time talking to this youth minister, and this youth minister had written a book explaining how, like, you know, Christianity was a thinking person's religion, right?
Okay.
And he had, and so he gave Jacob this book of his, right? And so Jacob reads it, and he writes this spectacular rebuttal. I mean, it's magnificent. I mean, when I was 18, I didn't have my ideas as well formed as this kid does, right? And presented it to this youth minister. And the guy's like, okay, well,
you weren't supposed to actually think about it.
I'll read this later and get back to you. Okay, so that we know of, the guy still hasn't gotten back to him yet. But then, you know, Jacob was told by this youth minister that he shouldn't spread his rebuttal around, like show it to the other kids.
Well, of course not.
Yeah, and Jacob's like, well, hang on. I mean, if Christianity's a thinking person's religion, why can't you
think?
Yeah, basically, right? So there is the URL. The evangelist's name, this youth minister's name, is Tom Short, and he's the guy who wrote this book that Jacob. So there's the URL. I want to leave this up on the screen long enough for people to jot it down, because you really ought to read this. It is awesome and very impressive for a guy his age. And I'd love to see that. I would like to see more, you know, the intellect of youth, being stimulated in this way. And he's like a terrific example, you know, I think for young atheists. But it's jacobandrews.com, tomshort.htm. And we're going to leave that up for a couple of minutes just to make sure everyone has a chance to write it down. It is what he starts with a little preface, you know, explaining the circumstances of going to this revival, and then he just launches into his rebuttal of this guy's book. Yeah. And he just annihilates, you know. Wow. It's magnificent.
That's impressive.
And then he talks about, you know, the reaction that he got from this Tom Short guy.
Yeah.
To ultimately, what usually happens when atheists debate with Christians, it usually gets to a point where you finally back them up against the wall so thoroughly that all they're left with are just emotional, you know, tantrums, right?
It's either complete fallacies or complete areas that they didn't plan to go on. We've had callers on the show where, you know, we eventually argue them into a corner, and they say, you know, if you found out that there was no God, would you just start killing people? Well, yes, I would.
Yeah, we had that. A couple people that
we've
had
had a couple people that have, you know, you back them into the corner, and obviously they don't think like that.
Yeah.
But when you argue them into that corner, they either have to A, support their position by killing everybody, or B, admit that they were wrong and change their position,
which they can't do.
That's one.
Well, they could do if they had the courage to do it. Yeah. But you know, I think what Jacob says at the end of his thing. In the passage where, you know, Randy wrote to James Randi, which is why, you know, and then Randy was responsible for getting this out. But in the letter he wrote to Randy, he basically said that the last time he heard from Tom Short, you know, this Tom Short guy basically told him that all he was doing was, you know, trying to tear down people who love the Lord and stuff. You know, this just kind of guilt tripping. You know, it's in lieu of an actual response to the arguments. That's all the guy could come up with.
If it was a thinking man's religion, then you should be able to think about it. You should be able to come back and say, okay, very good, you've thought about it. We're proud of you. Mm-hmm. Now here's where, you know, your logic is faulty, or you've made some mistakes, or you don't understand it completely.
Right, discuss.
And explain it. Yeah. That would be a good thing. You don't just say, don't do this.
Yeah. It's a thinking person's religion, but if you think about
it too hard, you've gone wrong.
If you think about it in ways we don't like, you're just a mean person who's trying to tear down people who love the Lord. Yeah. Yeah. If you see, that's it's so funny that you get apologists and evangelists will talk that way. I have been working. I gave up for a while just because I had, you know, better things to do in life, like you know, clean my toenails, right? But. I want to finish it up, and I want to finish it up, you know, within the next few weeks. I was working on a rebuttal of this really, really lame book of apologetics by D. James Kennedy. You all know who D. James Kennedy is. D. James Kennedy he's one of the leading lights of the Christian right movement. Yeah. Big pal of Judge Roy Moore. He's the guy whose ministries are responsible for making that videotape of Roy Moore breaking the law in the middle of the night. You know, sneaking that stupid monument in. You know, that he got slapped down for. and then selling this for his legal defense fund, right? So sort of aiding and abetting a criminal, as it were. But anyway, so he's considered like part of the intellectual cream of the evangelical crop, right? And I'm reading his book like, boy, this is some pretty watered down cream, just because his. But what he does, what's interesting is his book is called, and I'm going to get done with this, and then
Skim the milk.
When I finish it, I'll put it up on the website, and then but just to give you the short version of it, the title of his book is Skeptics Answered. Right, like here it all is.
Sounds like exactly what I've been looking for.
Right, Skeptics Answered. Just answers it. But then he starts the book by saying, Christianity welcomes skeptics and thinking people because it's not one of these religions where you got to hang your brain at the door. We welcome this, right? But then what he immediately does.
Assuming your brain is only partially active, that's true.
But then what he immediately does, right, is he in the first chapter he goes about redefining skepticism in a way that is friendly to his position.
Yes.
Right? So he says, first what we have to do is talk about what we mean when we talk about skepticism, right? And he comes up with this distinction between honest skeptics and dishonest skeptics.
Okay.
And apparently then what we find out very quickly reading is that to him, an honest skeptic is somebody who really, 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 really wants to be converted. He's just got a couple of details he wants smoothed over first. Right? Okay. A dishonest skeptic is one of those pains in the ass like us, right? Who keep insisting on hard evidence and keep pounding you with questions. And those people are, we have some, we're hiding, we have a cruel and vindictive heart, and we're hiding behind a wall of denial, and all of this emotional, right, And so it's like, okay, I get it. So if I ask you a question that you can't answer, or you don't want to answer, then the more skeptical you are, the less honest you are about your skepticism. It is hilarious, and it's so obvious, right? But then in chapter 2, he starts off by just dismissing all skeptics. So much for not only does he contradict chapter 1 there, he just completely contradicts the whole the premise of his we welcome skeptics, but you're all dishonest, so screw you. And now we're going to get, and then he goes on a whole bunch of lame stupid arguments like trying to use Bible prophecy, like thinking that proves stuff. Just and it's literally the same long refuted arguments that Christians have always hit atheists with for centuries. It's like there's not a single new argument in the whole book. That was what was amazing to me. There's like not a single new argument. And I'm like, wow.
I have actually been looking so hard, and I'll get into this in a few minutes, for some really good, deep answer to the problem of evil. Because again, I mean, the problem of evil typically is God is all good, knowing, and loving. So, if there's evil in the world, why didn't he know about it? Why doesn't he want to do anything about it, or is he just not able to? Nobody wants to admit that he cannot do one of those three things, so something's wrong.
If God's all powerful, there's nothing he cannot do.
He knows about it, he wants to prevent it, and he's able to. So why are there bad things in the world? That's the basic argument. Christians usually come back with a couple different things. Free will.
Right.
As in, I can, some criminal can go out there, and if he wants to rob banks, then that's his free will to choose those things. And if he chooses wrong, then then he gets punished.
Yeah, God doesn't want to make us all a bunch of mindless automaton robots.
Exactly, and that's
just doing His will.
And that is even on something that specific as in a bank robber. Or someone who wants to do drugs or something like that. I can almost kind of sort of see it, but not really, because again, if your kids want to do drugs, do you say they have free will?
No.
No, because that's going to hurt them. Now, if God loves his children, even the bank robbers, why doesn't he stop them? Why doesn't he stop these people from hurting themselves, even nobody else? And again, that throws out the whole thing about earthquakes.
I'll tell you what, the appeal to free will really collapses. And that is with this whole little troublesome issue of innocent victims.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? Here's the thing. Well, because we talk about okay, let's look at this thing that happened in Florida last week. A scumbag kidnapped that little girl right in front of the security camera. Took her off, killed her stone dead in a church parking lot, by the way. Kind of strange. It's absolutely awful, just inexcusable, unforgivable event, right? I'd flip the switch myself. Okay, and not look back. Okay, but you you use an example like that as a great example of the problem of evil. And a Christian who attempts to use the appeal to free will in that example is forgetting something. Okay?
Just a little tiny factor.
The little girl presumably had free will.
Yes.
Okay. Whose free will counts here?
Yeah.
Okay. You have the villain, right? The attacker,
Yeah.
you know, the murderer, and his free will is telling him, I want to do this horrible thing to this kid.
Yeah.
Here you've got the kid saying, my free will says I don't want this to happen to me. Now, whose is more important?
Apparently.
So if you're saying that God is like just standing back, casually observing this, you know, whistling to himself, not interfering because he doesn't want to interfere with free will.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Whose free will is he not wanting to interfere with? You know, I mean, it's not. Whose free will is he favoring?
Yeah. Can we then say that police are more moral than God because they would at least try and stop this?
Yeah, or just any bystander standing on the street.
Exactly.
If this were happening to you, and you're like, you know, laying there being victimized, and then you looked over and saw somebody cross the street just standing there watching.
Yeah.
What would you think of that person?
Yeah. And they're just saying, "I'm sorry, I don't want to interfere."
Yeah. Yeah.
He's doing what he wants to do.
None of my business. Yeah. Yeah. I can't interfere with people's free will. That would make them a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're forgetting a little thing. The victim has free will too.
Yeah.
So if God is not interfering with these horrible crimes because he doesn't want to interfere with free will, sounds to me like he is favoring the bad guy's free will over that of the victim, and I have a hard time with a God like that.
Yeah.
So that's where the free will thing collapses, is this whole little problem of innocent victims. If it were just God leaves you free to do stupid stuff, okay, and then you're the one who gets hurt, and the only one who gets hurt doing your stupid thing, and then God can go, see? It's like,
but
okay,
even that,
okay, God, I learned my lesson.
Even that I don't agree with. Because again, if you have a child, you know, there are certain things that we allow them to learn through hardship because we know that it's not real hardship, and because they'll learn well from it, and it's a lesson that we would have a hard time teaching. For instance, studying. Yeah. No kid really wants to go up to their room and study for 3 hours for their tests.
Right.
But it's going to teach them good things. You can't just, you know, plug them into their USB cable on the computer, upload the knowledge in 3 minutes, and have it over with.
Oh, what a joy that day will be when that comes.
Exactly. Yes. They've got to work for it.
Yeah.
And you know that they're not really going to go through any hardship. And so let them go through this pain, which you don't like seeing. You don't like telling your kids, no, you're going to study for your test, damn it. Yeah. You don't like doing that, but you do, because you can't give them the knowledge and it's not really going to hurt them. However, if there's something that you can prevent, that's something simple, like studying for a test that no kid wants to do. If a kid walks over to a light socket with a fork,
all right,
you stop them. Because it's really going to frickin' hurt.
Yeah. It's really cool.
And it's really going to mess them up.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to happen to them. It's something you can prevent. It's something that's really going to hurt them. You stop them and you tell them, look, that's really bad idea.
Yeah.
Now, God is all-powerful and all-knowing. He can do anything he wants. If he doesn't want you to study for a test, he can just give you the knowledge. So apparently, there is some reason that he is not doing this. And that's the only explanation. Is that he's just free will. Is that he's just a prick. So
yeah. Or that
he
maybe
can prevent any hardship he wants.
Or maybe that like he doesn't exist. Okay, that would be
that's wow. Never thought of that.
Right, but no matter how you slice it, the whole sort of there's definitely a problem of God's as a morally responsible being.
Yeah.
Presented by the problem of evil. So that's where the free will appeal collapses. Now, what was the other response that you said?
The other response, I'm just trying to think of it now. They got the free will for the problem of evil. Can't even think of the other one offhand.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you one that I've heard.
But I can't remember.
I'll tell you one that I've heard, and that's and this is amazing to me because it's an example of argument by declaration. I was on a message board one time, and one Christian came up, and in all serious, he said, "No, problem of evil is not inconsistent at all, and I'll show you why." And he goes, and he used like an example like the one I just used, right? Like some child being raped. Yeah. He says, God has a morally sufficient reason for allowing that to happen.
Yes.
And that's it. And I'm like, sorry to dip my little fly in your ointment here, but what is this morally sufficient reason? I don't know if like I told this guy, I don't know if you realize this, but you have just stated that there is such a thing as a moral justification for raping kids.
Yeah.
Now you have to present that. You have to tell me what that is.
Yeah. And I really want to hear about it.
Yeah, because I submit to you that there is no such thing as a morally sufficient reason for allowing a crime like that to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if you're saying there is, and it's okay with your God, you have to tell me what that is.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of indignation in reply, but never really an answer.
Well, that is very similar to the other argument, as in, there's a good reason that we let this happen, and they will.
But it's not for us to question.
They will
who
learn
are you to
from
question?
this experience, and yes, who are we to question an infinitely knowledgeable being?
I really don't know what this dead girl in Florida is learning from her experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, and anybody who would use the appalling excuse that, like, well, she's in heaven with Jesus now, it's like, oh, okay, well then why don't we just make this crime legal and set all these predators on to kill all our kids so they can be with Jesus quicker.
Lots of kids up to heaven and go to Jesus.
Yeah, that's no excuse. But so anyway, so if what you're basically saying is that you have for the longest time been looking for an argument to an argument against the problem of evil that works.
Yeah.
Well, atheists have been looking for such an argument for years and years.
Long time.
For centuries and a long time. But who knows? Maybe if someone calls us today, maybe they'll have one.
Yeah.
A doozy for us. But interesting. But all right. And our producer is telling us that if God is omnipotent, He does not need to use evil as a means to an end. Well, yes. Right.
So.
Right. That's very true. All powerful.
And
you talked about earthquakes. You brought that up.
Yes.
How the problem of evil doesn't. All of the responses to the problem of evil don't even begin to address natural evils.
Exactly.
Like earthquake, typhoons, and tornadoes. I actually heard an hilarious.
I think you told me this one.
Yeah, where it's a guy named I think his name is Hugh Ross. I might have the first name wrong, but he's one of these guys who's out there, and and his whole trip is trying to reconcile Christianity with science, right? And he does it with a lot of flawed, fallacious arguments.
Yeah.
But
who doesn't?
Yeah, but you think this guy has several PhDs, so it's a perfect example of how a very, very smart person can get to wrong conclusions. We had that dumb caller last week who hit us with all he gives us this big straw man argument about how we're all here, basically that we're just a bunch of elitists saying that, well, we're just smarter than Christians aren't smart and we are, and that's why. It's like, no, I fully concede that there are a great many millions of extremely smart Christians out there.
Yeah.
Being smart doesn't mean you're infallible, okay? Yeah. Smart people can arrive at totally erroneous conclusions about things. Yeah. In fact, sometimes a really, really intelligent person is better at getting it wrong than a dumb person, because it takes a really, really smart person to come up with some elaborate theory as to, how the black helicopters are taking over the world and stuff like that, right? So, it takes some brains to, concoct these wacky notions. So, a really dumb, just complete tard can't,
It takes a good mind to figure out the Rube Goldberg kind of things that they have to go through to justify their religion.
Yeah. Yes. Didn't mean to offend anyone with that term there. I was a minute to, but this Hugh Ross is a perfect example of a really, really smart man who has just, but through the filter of his religious beliefs, reached wrong conclusions about how to apply science to religion. But his answer to he was on a TBN show one time, and they talked about how, God uses earthquakes because He has to, because that's how He can shift minerals around the Earth's crust. He said this, something to this effect. In all seriousness, I'm like, okay, so your all-powerful, universe-creating, invisible friend cannot come up with a way of shifting minerals in the Earth's crust that doesn't lead to some massive natural disaster that can kill thousands of people. Okay, they don't understand the whole concept of omnipotent, right?
He can do anything.
He can just move those molecules around, and a gnat wouldn't feel it if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it means to be omnipotent. So it's just really funny, just the contortions and the really, really lousy arguments that just how far they'll reach to get to there. But that was a fun little series of rants. Yeah.
But speaking about the problem of evil, I actually, going back to last week, I wasn't here.
We noticed that. we were all in the dizzy going,
sorry.
How do we do the lights? How do we, Ashley?
Sorry. I was actually out of town, and while there, I found one of these Christian bookstores, and decided to go in. I'm just driving around me.
Do the Arlo thing, and
and so we pull up, and I'm like, my brother says he's going to go over there. I said, Christian bookstore, I'm going to go in there for a little while. And he kind of gives me this weird look, and I'm
whatever, dude.
The problem. And he goes, "You're going to go in there with that?" And I'm, what? And I failed to notice that I had my sweatshirt on, which has unsaved written. Didn't notice that one, but went in there anyway.
Well, they probably looked up and were like, "Oh, that's nice that you came in because we're here for you." Yes.
I know you're doing the right thing.
If you have any questions, you just ask us.
Exactly.
Yes.
So anyway,
your needs.
Yeah, I figured, I've been looking for something that explains the problem for a while.
Yeah.
So hopefully this would be a place that would have good apologetics books.
It's not like me walking in there with my shirt that says Jesus did it for the chicks. That would not be a good. It's like, not win me too many friends.
Yeah.
So anyway, you're in there, right?
But anyway, yeah, I went in there. I figured I'd look for a really good apologetics book because I read The Case for Faith, and I mean it's got some cursory arguments in there, but you think about it for a little while and they fall apart just like anything else. So I figured maybe there's something a little more deep somewhere, and a Christian bookstore is going to be better to go to than Barnes and Noble or whatever. So anyway,
you'll certainly be immersed in that environment in a Christian bookstore.
So I figured I'd go in there and look around, and I get to look around their books. They've got their theology section, stuff like that, and I can't find any books that really address this. They have the Case for Faith and all the standard books, but nothing special. So I figured, okay, fine, let's see if they have a book that says, witnessing to your atheist friends or something like that.
Yeah, something that has atheist in the title.
Exactly. And I look up about 4 or 5 different books that aren't on atheism specifically, but just, faiths or converting or witnessing or whatever. And every single one of them misrepresents atheism. Every single one of them. Not one of them gets it right.
What a surprise. Yeah.
All of them say that atheists profess that there is no God, or atheists believe that there is no God, versus atheists lack belief. Or simply don't believe.
Well, they don't make the distinction between strong and weak atheism.
Exactly.
Which are terms I hate.
All of them are strong atheists.
Yeah, which are terms I hate, by the way, because weak atheism is not a
weak argument
position intellectually.
Yeah.
It's just it's less of a declaration of that there are no.
Yeah.
And can be no gods.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've heard arguments for strong atheism that are good.
Oh, yeah.
And I would agree with a lot of them. It's just that you and I and a lot of atheists, when we're arguing, we go ahead and we take what's called the weak atheist position, which is, lacking evidence, we choose not to believe you Christians when you say that there's this God, simply because it's sufficient to defend atheism. Yeah. When you remember that the burden of proof is entirely on the theist in these matters, then the weak atheist position just becomes the natural, simple default position. Yeah. But of course, in the case of these Christian books, right, it is in their interests to represent all atheism as strong atheism, because what that does is that makes it seem like the burden of proof is now upon the atheist to prove that their invisible friend doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so it's the classic fallacy of shifting the burden of proof, which is what we talked about when you appeared on that TV show, Regeneration and everything. That's the one thing that Christians will always try to do. Yeah. In whatever context, they will want to shift the burden of proof to the unbeliever.
Yeah.
So, always. Yeah.
So I mean, it was entertaining to see that and kind of disheartening.
Mm-hmm. Did you pick up any testaments?
No,
Those
I
are
didn't.
yummy.
But that was the next thing I got onto. After I couldn't really find anything intellectually stimulating there, I figured I'd just walk around and see what they got. And one of the things which I did notice was kind of funny was they have this series of Christian books out there and tracts and that type of thing. And they have a website and they said, here, free sticker, take it. And it turns out to be this, which I don't think you can probably get all that well.
Yeah, she can probably get it.
Try it and see. But it's basically think books, which I find very odd that the Christians are saying, let's go and think.
I thought it was about
for ourselves,
faith,
And so I thought that was rather humorous.
Sure. Yeah, everybody who we give one of these stickers to, they never come back to our store.
Exactly.
I wonder why not.
Don't quite get it, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even our caller last week, last week was like, when Jeff D was a guest, he was like, look, you got to take this stuff on faith. So he was honest about that.
Yeah. And
I wonder if that's Tom Short's little publishing company.
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look it up yet and look through the site or anything.
Okay.
But yeah, I got a couple of small pictures that weren't good enough to get here.
I'm curious about the Angry Bird cartoon. What he represents.
It's an owl.
An owl.
It's
and
an
they're
owl.
supposed to be wise.
Well, owls usually have that kind of horn over their eyes.
Yeah. Well, that's the cliche, right? The wise old owl.
Exactly.
But he doesn't look like an owl. He looks like that looks like an egg that's got a hole in it, and this bird is getting ready to hatch, and he's like,
he's really pissed.
What? Can I help you? What do you want? Get out of here! I'm like naked in here.
But I didn't have all that good of a camera or anything like that to get pictures. But they had 2 T-shirts which I found that were absolutely flabbergasted.
Tobiah Marlowe would have. He would buy them and wear them.
Yeah, one of them that they had, it said Jesus, tougher than nails. And it had these big, 3 large iron nails that were like dripping in blood. And of course, I mean, Christianity's always got these, really kind of icky things.
Yeah.
So they had that.
Well, it's a human sacrifice-based religion.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
icky in the first,
Another one they had, which I found very funny, it was on a piece of parchment, picture of parchment. It said, "Dear son, I need you to build a bridge. Here's all the tools you need. See you soon. Love, Dad." And it had a big hammer and 3 iron nails on it.
It's
they invented bridge to heaven.
They've invented symbolism. That T-shirt company. Yes, I see.
And it was horrible. And I think another one I said is
death religion.
What was it? Yeah, one of them just freely admitted it.
What?
It had brainwashed written on it.
Wow!
They freely admit this.
Brainwashed.
And then they have like, Joshua or, some, not the actual quote, but like a biblical reference on it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I was just, you're right.
That would have been one to take a picture of.
Yeah, brainwashed.
Yeah. Did you have your little phone cam?
Yeah, I did, but the pictures are kind of small.
Well,
so
yeah, you can probably airport them over to your computer. Right?
Have to see. Maybe I can get them for next week or something like that. But
okay.
Wow, you admit it. Good for you. Admitting the problem is the first step to overcoming it.
The truth shall set you free. Yes. Amazing. Wow. Well, that's great.
All right.
But you got something there.
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
actually.
you picked something up.
Actually, I did.
That actually looks kind of useful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a book I've been looking. I was actually looking for a book or website or something like that for a while now that would kind of explain all the different denominations. I mean, you have Christianity. But then you have the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Baptists, the list goes on and on.
And then within them.
Exactly, and within them they have all these different sub-organizations, whatever. And so I was looking for some simple book that would go over and say, okay, here's the basics of the Methodists. Here's the basics of Lutheranism and stuff like that. And this is a fairly good book that does. It's called the Handbook of Denominations in the United States. And yeah, it goes over pretty much all the major ones. I mean, it's got the Adventist churches, the Baptists, the Baha'i, even stuff like Jehovah's Witnesses, Judaism, Islam. But yeah, it also goes into the smaller ones, the Lutheran. You got the Apostolic Lutheran Church of America, Association of Free Lutheran Congregations, and so on and so on and so on.
Oh, okay.
And like I say, each one is only maybe a page or two.
But it just
the
gives
history and the rundown of what they believe.
The doctrinal stuff.
Yeah, and so it's a really good read. Like I say, it's excellent just to have that, the Lutherans, what the hell are they? You know,
that's actually a terrific reference.
Differentiates them, and then you go through there and you'll find that 2.5 pages that goes over it, and there you go. So
that sounds really useful.
Okay.
Because,
and yes, that was the Handbook of Denominations in the United States of America.
Yeah. I was looking at the infidels.org website, and every month they have their essay of the month, and they had one on there by a guy who did some research into the different denominations, because he said to himself, all right, all my life as an atheist I've had Christians telling me that I have to get saved, and I started thinking about, well, get saved from what exactly? And so he started going into how the different denominations view salvation, what they believe about salvation. And they're all different.
Yeah.
Some have, there are general points on which many of them agree, but specifically there are some that are just radically different. And how you have to be saved, what it is you're exactly going to be saved from. What are their thoughts on hell? Some denominations just view hell as separation from God, whereas others are really into the whole fire and brimstone and screaming and wailing and gnashing of teeth stuff. But it was fascinating, for he just went down in like a big table and differentiated all of the different denominations. Well, not all of them, but at least all the ones.
But
at least 20, right? I mean, a whole bunch, and their different views on salvation and what goes on in the afterlife. If you're an unbeliever, so fascinating.
Yeah, that was actually interesting. I just read through some of this and read over the Adventists, and on one hand, they are a really scary bunch. They're the ones who the basic belief is Jesus Christ is coming back real soon now. And basically, you know, we're going to have the big Armageddon and the world's going to end and Jesus is going to save everybody. And then there's going to be 1,000 years of peace with, you know, Jesus Christ being the ruler of the world.
But this is all after the tribulation and the war and the 200 million angels or whatever.
I didn't didn't actually read too much of that. Basically, they say, you know, Jesus is going to come.
Right.
Everyone's going to be resurrected, go back to the final judgment.
Okay.
And then there's going to be 1,000 years of peace on earth with Jesus ruling the world.
What happens after the 1,000 years?
I don't know.
Because that's the New Jerusalem, right? The 1,000 years of peace.
Okay.
So what happens to that? Just everything is subsumed into heaven, or what? You know.
I'm not sure. Like I say, I haven't read that much into it.
But that doesn't seem to be thinking too far ahead. You know.
Well, maybe it's not 1,000 years. Maybe it's eternity. But
well, no, I've heard 1,000 years myself, and I've always wondered, like, okay, well, what happens on like year 1001? It's sort of like
all goes to hell again. But at least they're nice in a certain way, that they say that unbelief, in that, you know, if I die today, and then, you know, it's another 2,000 years, or according to them, 20 days or so until, you know, Jesus comes. For at least those 20 days, I'm not in hell or anything like that. I'm just unconscious. I'm just asleep. Not really, you know, not really anything bad. And then I go up to my final judgment, and being an atheist, most of them that I've read so far, I don't go to hell. I go through a second death, and then I'm basically just winked out of existence.
Yeah. Jehovah's Witnesses are like that. They don't believe in hell.
Yeah, so there is
sinners just cease to exist when they die.
Yeah, so so I would basically just go up, be judged, get a second death, or one of them said extinguished by fire. Okay. But still, that implies that it's an end.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the people who are saved, they get to live on earth with Jesus for, you know, all eternity, and life is good. So at least they're nice in that way, but, you know, in the meantime, they're really scary people.
But at least they don't have this whole sort of this vision of hell where it's all about let's gloat over the wailing.
Exactly. We shall enjoy the cries of our loved ones.
Rivers of blood and what have you, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the news now. Okay. Because we got a caller waiting, but we're going to go ahead. I mean, we had some fun talking first, but we'll do the news real quick, and then so hang on, caller, because we'll get to you.
Couple quick stories. First one, they had some bones found in 1996 in Kennewick, Washington.
Okay.
And they were apparently there were some things. I think it was a skull or something like that, perhaps. But it had some very distinct features, some very unusual features to it. And scientists were looking to try and study this and figure out, you know, where did this come from? Is it related to Native Americans? Is it not? What's the deal? However, in the U.S., there is this Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, which basically says that if some Native Americans can have, you know, artifacts or bones or something like that, which are Native American, then they get hold of them and they can go, you know, bury them or, you know, whatever needs to be done.
So it's all about respecting the cultures.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's been a big legal battle now for the last 7 years. The scientists want to study these bones. The Native Americans want to bury them. And so it's been going back and forth now for 7 years. They finally have a judgment on it. They're going to give it to the scientists, basically. The scientists are going to be able to look over these bones. Now, of course, it's probably going to go back on appeal. But as it stands right now, the U.S. Appeals Court has given permission to scientists to study the 9,000-year-old skeleton, despite objections.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly all for respecting cultures.
Yes.
And you know, it would be nice if some sort of compromise could have been reached.
Yeah.
Like, you know, let's at least study them, find out something about, you know, the history here, and then we'll rebury them as soon as possibly can. But of course, you know, the cultures have, you know, this all gets down to the point of, you know, how it's as atheists we're always accused of just not respecting people's right to believe.
Yeah.
And which is nothing could be further from the truth. We do, right? Yeah. And you know, but there are legitimate instances where a person's right to believe could come into conflict with something that, you know, could really be helpful just for the cause of science, human knowledge. You know, battling. This is, you know, more expansive things than this, like battling disease and what have you.
Exactly.
So, you know, in this instance, I think, you know, I mean, I don't understand why the tribe wouldn't want to know something about this historical, you know, figure that is very important to their history. But you know, it's always a very different, difficult battle to wage, you know, when you're trying to find this compromise between cultures and science.
Yeah,
Very
basically they couldn't. The reason that they decided to decide the way that they did is because they couldn't find any obvious relationship between these bones and any surviving Native American tribes. They can't say that, you know, it's got the features of this tribe or something like that, and so it's most likely of that tribe, and so we can prove that it is.
You could be the missing link.
Exactly, and so, you know, they can't tie it down, and so they basically say, you know, sorry. So.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're not like flagrantly disrespectful and, you know, like,
of course,
taking leaks in the burial mound and stuff. You know, I mean, certainly there's common sense involved. But.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
You know.
So at least hopefully we can. Well, hopefully it would be nice to learn something about that and learn about, you know, how people came to, you know, this continent. And,
sure.
You know, when did it happen and whatnot. So. Okay, another one, we had a story a couple weeks back where in Georgia they decided to take all evolution out of their textbooks. Now, they didn't actually take the teachings or the ideas or the evidence out. They just took evolution out, the word, and replaced it with biological changes over time. Apparently that's going to fix problems or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, you know, the rest of the country kind of had a hissy fit, including former President Carter, who said it exposed the state to nationwide ridicule, and he basically, you know, completely said that this is asinine.
Yeah. It wasn't as dumb as what they did in Kansas, of course, but it was just this misguided attempt to say, okay, look, you know, here's a way to, like, stop the controversy.
Yeah.
We've got to teach this stuff because it's science.
Yeah.
But we just won't use the E word.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because that pisses off the fundies and they vote. So let's.
Yeah. Arose by any other name.
It was somebody with you know, their heart in the right place and did a dumb idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
anyway, that's been turned around.
Okay.
They have kind of said, you know, okay, yeah, we're dumbasses, and so evolution is going back in.
Yeah.
And again, it's not really changing anything. They're just, you know, doing, you know, find and replace.
Right. Right.
So, also, this one is really scary. One of the worst things that you can hear on a flight, 30,000 feet, you know, this is the captain speaking. If you can pray, please do so.
Yeah.
That didn't give me a feeling of confidence.
Yeah.
So what does this American Airlines pilot do? Now this is actually while boarding, or possibly taxiing or something like that. Hopefully not at 30,000 feet. Yeah. He said, could all Christians on the plane please raise their hands?
March to the back of the plane. No. I'm sorry,
open
go
the
on.
hatch.
Yeah. Go on.
No, actually, they all raise their hands. And now he said, anyone who didn't raise their hands, could you please spend the rest of the flight, you know, talking with the Christians and, you know, sharing your ideas with them. Basically, you know, this thing saying, let's get the Christians out there to evangelize to everyone else on the plane. And so that's really kind of scary.
Well, it's just
it's a pilot doing it.
It's a nuisance, right? It's none of his business.
Exactly.
To tell people on his flight what to talk about.
What you should be doing
Yeah.
during a flight, or pointing people out. You know, either pointing out the Christians or the non-Christians. Either one can be very disrespectful.
Yeah.
I mean,
if
that's not, you know, an important part of your life, or it's not something that you want to expose.
Well, again, and you know, people are going to defend him by saying, "Oh, it's free speech."
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. I mean, it's a bit beyond that, because not just anybody on that plane has the right to get on the intercom.
Exactly.
You know, I as a passenger could not get on the intercom and say, "Hi, everybody, I'm an atheist, and so if there's any atheists on the plane, let's spend this flight, you know, let's get in all the faces of all the Christians." Right?
Exactly.
That's not. I mean, it's gonna even a flight attendant.
Yeah.
If a flight attendant had done that, right? I mean, what he did was he used his privileged position as a pilot.
Yeah.
You know, and say, okay, I got this captive audience now, and I'm going to expose them to my beliefs, whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Captive audience.
What if he had been a Scientologist? What if that had been John Travolta flying that plane, which he loves to do?
And
right?
what one of our crew members pointed out is, what if he had come on and said, if you believe in Allah, please raise your hands.
Yeah, because we're going into that building.
Exactly. I mean, consider the scare that would have been raised and the bowel movements that would have happened had he said something like that.
Yeah, it would have lightened the load immensely.
You know, I mean, he would have been fired.
Yeah.
You know, before the plane hit down.
Yeah.
He would have been fired.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's just grossly inappropriate and disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would have loved to have been on that flight.
I would have given anything.
Loved.
I would have had a great time with that.
Would have been a flight to remember with us on that flight.
Get me out of his seat. Give me a Christian. I'll take him.
Okay. I'll start the discussion. Religion is retarded. Next.
Here's my position.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. But I would have been tactful enough not to do that. It's not my position to just get in somebody's face.
True.
Yeah.
True.
It's none of my business.
If a Christian would have come up to me, then yeah.
I would have, I'd have spoken to him. But again,
But I don't know if I would have gotten. I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to hold myself back.
What if the pilot had said?
Such fun.
Yeah. What if the pilot had said something like, take it away from religion, right? What if the pilot had said something like, okay, how about all the single men on this plane, find some hot woman sitting next to you, and spend the whole flight putting the moves on her.
Yeah, we'll have the drinks lady come around in a little while to help you out. So.
Yeah. Find some sexy woman traveling by herself, get her wasted, and we'll bring by all these little bottles. It's a nice position, it's business to tell people what to do on the flight. So.
Yeah. So,
just not.
So that was incredibly inappropriate, and like I say, if you think about it for a couple seconds, really freaking scary.
Yeah. Well, it's evangelicals, right, are becoming more and more emboldened ever since George has been in the White House.
Yeah.
And it's not just, of course, certainly everybody has the right to express their speech. If you're a Christian, you have the right to go out there and stand on a rooftop and say, I'm Christian, and you should be too, right? I mean, that's a First Amendment right you have. But, there's just the thing about what's appropriate behavior. When you have the thing like what Rick Perry was involved in Palestine, Texas, where they basically locked all the kids in the gymnasium of the school, wouldn't let them leave, and then had this prayer.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay, well, you don't want to do this willfully. We'll just lock you in and pray over you whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah.
It's just more. Yeah. It's going beyond just expressions of speech. To just it's bullying. It's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And not all Christians do this, but these evangelicals are becoming more and more bold about it, and goodness knows how it's really going to hit the fan when this Mel Gibson movie comes out. So.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking about that in a few weeks. So, all right.
Got two quick quotes.
And then we're going to go ahead and get to...
This is actually a study
And
done.
the phone number to call us live is 477-2288. I believe that's our number, if I remember correctly. So we'll go ahead and put that up on the screen for everybody.
This is in the Boston Globe. It was a quick study that was done of how the views of Jesus change in the United States. As in the United States, there have been ads up that said, Jesus would be vegetarian.
Right.
And there have been other ads that said Jesus was a meat eater. Jesus would drive an SUV.
I haven't seen those. I have seen that one.
Jesus, would drive fuel economical cars. And so, it just runs the gamut. You can use it for whatever you want.
It's the ultimate celebrity endorsement.
Exactly. And so, they just had a couple quotes in here. This is just a whole article talking about all the different views and how it's changed, stuff like that. And it's just got some great quotes. The flexibility our Jesus exhibits is unprecedented. There's a Gumby-like quality to Jesus in the United States. Even turning Jesus into a friend among born-again Christians, that kind of chutzpah is something that was unknown even to Americans in the colonial period.
Pokey, you will deny me thrice. Sorry.
And the other one had, Americans seem to be using him to pat themselves on the back rather than to put a burr under their saddle. Apparently, it used to be more along the lines of people would use religion and stuff to say, this is what you should be doing, go out and drive you, rather than just saying, what I'm doing is right. You see, the Bible tells me so.
But what's new, right?
Exactly.
It's
and they do point out that because we have freedom of religion in this country, anybody who has, an idea out there can go out and say, this is what God is like and this is what Jesus is like. And the more likely, the kinder a face you put on it, the more likely you're going to get people to follow you. And that's why they have so many religions, and they're all competing against each other for members.
Yeah, all the different
And so that's why you've got all these different views of Jesus, because everybody wants to, say, this is what's going to get us support.
Yeah. And it's interesting how, when believers talk about, well, God would want this and God would want that, right? It's interesting how often... God's tastes and his wants and his prejudices and his preferences
just so happen to align.
They line up with that person's. God always seems to agree with that person. Whatever,
Yeah.
Oh,
God told me I was an idiot.
Well, I guess the people who made that brainwash shirt probably. True. Got you, didn't we? Here's a shirt. So, okay, so time for calls now. 477-2288 is that phone number to call us live. And don't forget that we have reruns of this program take place Tuesdays, every Tuesday afternoon on this channel at 4:30 p.m. It's Atheist Experience Replay. And, hey, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
It's me?
Yeah, it's you. Hi, how's it going?
Good. Listen, I wanted to mention this article in Rolling Stones, the last Rolling Stones, about Tim LaHaye.
Oh, yeah, LaHaye, the Left Behind guy?
Yeah, the Left Behind dude. And it's a good article. There's a lot of good information in there. He's really a creepy person. I myself am a believer, and, I kind of believe anything. I think the world's pretty weird. And believing in, some idea of what I have God might be. It doesn't seem that weird to me. But you said a couple of things. Just a second ago, somebody was saying that it behooves the religions or the different churches to paint a picture of Jesus as all nice and lovey and fluffy and vegetarian and all that. And I just wanted to say that I think that's something that that's something that social evolution is bringing along. It's more appealing now to have a loving God because it makes more sense. But I think the religion has used fear much more than faith and comfort to keep people coming into the religion.
Oh, for sure. They still do that, right? I mean, it always ultimately does come down to the threat of hell for noncompliance.
It used to be a bit more blatant. They would stand out in front of the church and say, you're going to burn in hell if you don't come in. Now they say Jesus loves you, but if you don't come in, you're going to burn.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot of very confused people in the church who really don't know how to deal with that because they don't know how to turn against tradition and what tradition has said as far as, hell and stuff like that and what all it means. I find myself defending the ideas of the myths that were passed down originally, and I end up having to rip apart the people who passed down those myths, the religious people who I believe are actually serving a purpose, because I think these stories, the old stories, whether it be Genesis or, the life of Jesus itself, is, I'm sure, obviously there's a lot of legend and myth wrapped up in that. Yeah. And I see there's value in those kind of things, and I'm not a black and white kind of guy who thinks, well, either it's like this, either God is something, looks like Charleston Heston and lives up in the sky and is a flamethrower, or he doesn't exist. I like to think of myself as kind of open-minded. I think there's a scripture that says God asked, it's probably Old Testament, I'm not sure, but it's come reason with me. And, that's kind of refers to goes back to what you were saying about.
I'm thinking that's Paul, but I'm thinking
Christianity is a thinking man's religion.
Well, that's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah. I think the people who are saying that don't have a thought in their head. Most of the time.
Well, so
we would agree.
Well, it's that again. It's smart people can come to erroneous conclusions, and it happens when particularly you have an ideology. That tells you a lot of things that you really want to believe about yourself, okay? It tells you that you're special. It tells you that there's a creator to the universe who thinks you're special. He's intimately concerned with every detail of your life, and he loves you. And when you die, you're going to get to go to this wonderful paradise and be by his side forever. And there's a lot of great emotionally affirming things that appeal to, just the emotional core of a lot of people in religion. And so what people then do is because, okay, I've got the belief now, and the belief gives me all the warm fuzzies that I want, and now I will intellectually rationalize them. And this is where you get, smart people, but they come up with really erroneous, flawed arguments to support the belief intellectually. The belief that they have decided to hold, I think, for largely emotional reasons. So, it's not that they don't have a thought in their head. It's just that they've...
I'm not sure if I disagree with that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that at the same time.
Well, I think that there's something wrong with it if it causes you to have wrong ideas about stuff.
And if it causes you to... generally, and I really don't know what erroneous ideas you're talking about. I don't see any contradiction. I think...
Well, I'll give you one. I'll give you an example. Okay. There are denominations of Christianity that deny all medical science. And these parents, there are parents who, like, their children will get sick with very, very simple illnesses, and they will refuse to take those kids to the hospital, and when in some cases even just, ibuprofen would fix them up, and the kids die. Okay, that's a problem. I think that's an erroneous conclusion.
I thought you were talking about intelligent people.
But these people have intellectually rationalized. They've done it badly, right? They've basically said that.
I thought you were talking about really smart people.
Oh well, okay. These aren't really smart people. But I mean,
they're dumb people.
Those are dumb people. But what I'm saying is, but they still came up with an intellectual rationalization that was erroneous and that was messed up. Okay. Now, not all Christians and not all Christian apologists accept the idea that, in fact, the more mainstream ones don't accept the idea that, like, to be Christian you have to reject all science or to do this or that or the other thing. But there are examples of, again, just people coming up with, based on their beliefs, just wrong ideas about things, but they're smart, So.
You lost me again.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Well,
anyway.
the thing I also want to mention George Bush. You had said since he got in office, in Al Franken's recent book, Liars and the Lying Liars Who Tell It, or whatever, he talked about George Bush and a couple other Republican politicians supposedly had gone off to some Bible seminar and taken some class, and all sat around and discussed the Book of Acts. And somebody cornered him on it. And of course, in the Book of Acts is about a bunch of communists. The early Christians, all giving away all their money and rejecting all materialism, and completely goes against the Republican platform. And George Bush was completely ignorant to, like he's never read the Book of Acts in his life, but. So,
that's funny.
I guess I feel like, I don't want to be pigeonholed, but I feel like, sensitive, caring people under the umbrella of the Christian church, not Catholic, but the big Christian umbrella, have to end up apologizing and defending these butthole fundamentalists. and I think it's really more to do with politics and fundamentalism than it is Christian versus non-Christian. Because I think it's just like America, we've got buttholes in America who are trying to start wars with buttholes across the country. And if all the
That's why we need to have an anti-butthole law.
Could just get together all over the world,
If everyone just eat their fiber.
Put the buttholes on an island, and they could, fight each other, and everybody be happy because they would get to have their war, and everybody who wanted to get along could get along.
Could get along. Yeah. It's an interesting point. I do think it is worthwhile pointing out that. While the evangelicals and the fundamentalists and the real diehards make up an actual very small portion, a very small contingent within just American Christianity as a whole, they seem to, they're just the noisiest because they're the most well-funded and they're the most politically connected. And so they get there, they presume to represent all Christians everywhere, which they don't, and and they're very small. They're small, but they're an extremely vocal and rich minority. So good point all around. But we're going to go ahead and get to our next guy. But we appreciate you calling. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
You take care.
Good.
So that's right. More fiber, more friends.
Exactly.
That's all you need. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Jerry has been holding online too. Thanks for holding. How you doing?
All right. How are you today?
We are well. We're just having a good time.
Actually, I wanted to make sure that it's all right for me to do this. There is a book I came across in the library that is a really good introductory example of what atheism is. Is it all right to mention the title? And such?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Title is Atheism, a Reader. It's edited by S.T. Joshi.
Yes, got that. Go ahead, though.
But, I thought that is a good thing, perhaps, to mention people that are asking a lot of these questions that you may not, have enough time to answer all their questions.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the quotes that it has from Ambrose Bierce that is, as his usually sardonic answer is, it is the peculiar distinction of atheism to be nothing at all. The atheist, as such, has no belief. To say he believes that there is no God is inaccurate. He merely does not believe there is God.
Yeah.
That's
it's a detailed point, but a pretty important one. Yeah.
The also that there's another reference that a lot of atheists are very fond of. It's by George Smith. It's a book called "Atheism: The Case Against God," And he also makes that point, that the distinction of having a positive active belief that there is no God versus simply refraining from belief in a God due to the fact that you haven't found any compelling evidence to give you a reason to do so, right? And there is that distinction to be made between strong atheism and weak atheism. I mean, I have encountered atheists, and we talk to them on our mailing list all the time, and I've encountered these guys who will say, I believe that there are no gods. I affirm that there are no gods. So those atheists exist. Right. And some of them actually have worthwhile arguments to back their points up. But I would agree with you and with Ambrose Bierce in that it's not really a necessary position for atheists to take. It is sufficient simply to say, it's just as if, Farmer Brown comes to me and he tells me that a UFO landed in his pasture last night. Well, it's not my job to tell Farmer Brown, I affirm that this did not and could not and never will happen. There are no aliens, there never were any aliens. No, I mean, all I have to do is say, Farmer Brown, show me your evidence, please. I'd very much like for you to prove that, because it's an interesting claim. Oh, well, I can't. The tracks all got, the tread marks got washed away in the rain last night. The footprints, they didn't have footprints because they hovered through the air in little jetpacks. So it's like, well, Farmer Brown, if you can't present me with your evidence, I will choose not to believe in your aliens. Maybe you were hitting the moonshine a little too hard last night. I mean, what's the more, so lacking evidence for an extraordinary claim, deciding not to believe is a perfectly rational position to take. And if you get that evidence, and you find it compelling, then you can change your mind and go, well, gee whiz, I guess I was wrong. Maybe there is an alien. Maybe there are leprechauns. Maybe there is a God in the sky. But I haven't encountered that atheist yet. So, exactly. But it's a worthwhile distinction to make. And I'm sure you were listening to Ashley earlier when he said that every single Christian book that he encountered in that Christian bookstore, every time they mentioned atheism, they gave that strong atheist definition, is that all atheism is a belief that there are no God.
Yeah. That's all I come across myself, not only in the books, but in talking with people. That's the stance that any believers tend to have that I've come across.
Because it's an easy one to strike down.
Exactly.
And, have you been to Utah? No. Well, how do you know God isn't there?
How do you know there's a Utah?
Exactly.
If you haven't been to Utah, how do you know Utah exists?
We've had that caller. How do you know Japan exists? And so that's beside the point. You can't. It depends on the definition that you're using of God. And again, a lot of times that's kind of the sticking point. If you want to say, I am hard atheist, I will affirm that God does not exist, depending on how you define God. But, given a lack of a concise definition of what you mean by God, I'm only going to say that I'm an atheist, I choose not to believe it. Because until you provide me with a really good definition, and
then compelling evidence.
There's nothing that I can do about it.
Like that.
So,
And one other thing that I wanted to mention earlier, when you were talking about the different denominations and the beliefs in hell and such, and I believe it was Martin had said that some, of course, believe that it's just a separation from God. I think one of the most simply eloquent statements of that is from Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, where Faust asks Mephistopheles how he can be in hell and tempting him here on earth at the same time, and Mephistopheles' reaction is simply, why, this is him, nor am I out of it. That's putting it very simply. So it's a belief that's been around for quite a while, but I haven't seen too many modern references to that sort of belief.
That's.
If this world right now is hell, well, send me to it for all eternity. I don't mind.
I mean,
not that bad.
It's got a few bad points, but
that's
some good too.
What they're aiming at is the complete separation from the Creator being such a hellish thing,
because their definition is anything good is God.
Right.
Therefore, that cup of coffee you have in the morning that you enjoy, that's God.
Yeah, God made those beans.
Exactly.
And so
yes, didn't Robert Heinlein kind of had that behind his mind in Stranger in a Strange Land?
Boy, I haven't read that in 20 years almost. I got to dig that back out. But I think he had several aphorisms to that effect in the Notebooks of Lazarus Long.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. So good points all. But thanks for bringing that up, because I actually want to. I've got that Joshi book sitting on a bottom shelf somewhere, and I really would like to dig it out again. And I should probably stick my nose into Dr. Faustus, because that's and Goethe, the Faust. story about because just fun little morality tales.
Well, they're both beautifully written.
They are. Yes, absolutely.
At any rate, you guys take care.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
All right, good call. Sally's been holding on 3. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Ashley and Martin. How are you doing?
We are well.
I just think you're great.
Why, thank you.
It's funny. I was thinking just about the Campus Crusades before the show started. And I was thinking, I'm going to call these guys and ask them about intuition.
Okay.
Because I was thinking, what these poor guys that don't get a chance to speak when this one dude that comes on that's tall, skinny with brown, I don't know what his name is, but he gets on the show, and if you have a rebuttal, they go to gray. You can never get. You just look stupid.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, some people have complained that I'm sort of like that. It's like, Martin, shut up. Oh, sorry.
I don't think so. Guys are great. There are a lot of people saying what you are saying. They're trying to do it in a very loving way, and they have been for centuries. Joel Goldsmith, God, is closer than hands and feet and breathing who you are, and Gagaji and Eli. They're saying, die to your psychological conditioning and stop, and just be here, because we don't know. And Krishnamurti, same thing, So there's many people saying it in more or less loving manner, and it's good to see you guys doing it, because poor Madeline, she was brilliant, but somehow or other she didn't come across that way,
A little on the abrasive side.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But I wish y'all would come up with a bumper sticker that says, "Hey guys, the emperor has no clothes."
That was sort of because that is kind of how that's my view of atheists, right? I mean, we're that little kid in the crowd going, "But mommy,"
Right.
What about the man behind
as a kid, too. You're lying out, you're looking at the clouds. Everything is changing. And man doesn't act like that church stuff all week long.
Yeah,
that's very true.
It's fear. It's all fear-based. But if you could just lay down and just die, to all the, you're going to die anyway. Why not just do it now? Physically, not really physically, but you know what I'm saying. Let go.
Okay.
Then maybe an epiphany, of what's really true can surface. And
well, I think that the way to find out what's true in life is certainly to get out there and explore, right?
Well, of course.
The original, thousands of years ago, right, at the dawn of civilization.
Right.
I mean, that is how religion started, right?
Absolutely.
But we have better methods now, but it's in human nature to sort of want to figure stuff out. I mean, we're exploring beings. We want to enhance our knowledge all the time. We admit that we don't know everything that there is to know about life, the universe, and all of it. Right. I think that what religion appeals to in many instances, and it's not just the fear thing. I think that the hell is like belief in hell and what have you.
Right.
That is that's a fear sort of reinforcement of compliance, right?
Right.
But I do think that there is also this feeling of satisfaction they get that people once they've accepted the belief system, they're like, all right, well, I've got it all figured out now, and it's a lot of easy answers to a lot of difficult questions, but it's all about. It does come back to wanting to know, but again, it's the easy answer to the difficult question. When really finding out what is what's the secret of why is there a universe? How do things work and why do they work the way they work? And it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of study, and it takes a lot of entire lifetimes are devoted to this, and a lot of people don't want to do that work. It's much easier to just have those answers handed to you in a package, and I think it's a thing that many religious fundamentalists have a problem with science. In that science doesn't guarantee those definite answers. And so they don't like science precisely, not just because science, when it comes up with answers, often conflicts with their beliefs, but it's also, but there's got to be a definite answer. What do you mean there's no meaning to life? There's got to be, there's no final, there's no final answer to any of the universe's mysteries. And I think that, science doesn't promise 100% absolute knowledge about stuff. And I think religion plays on that and makes people think that that's a troubling thing, that there should be those definite answers. So that's just my opinion. Ashley?
That covers it quite well.
Did it again, didn't I? Going on. Anyway, but anything else, Sally? Did we lose her? I bored her off the phone. I'm sorry. Well, thanks for calling anyway. Great call. Is that Sarah? Sarah B?
Sarab?
Sarab. Okay. Hi, you're on the phone. Thanks for holding.
Hi, this is Sarab. We met a while back. I even helped you with the cameras once.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I thought the name was familiar.
Okay. I'm sorry. Forgive me for not remembering.
Oh, that's all right. Anyway, just called to say your show is great. I did have a question, just in not as a theist or as an atheist,
sure.
But just in terms of you often you're both, I'm guessing, taking the weak atheist position, which is that the which puts the burden of proof on theists to prove that there is a creator or God, what have you. What is the proof? What kind of proof could a theist offer, or what is it that would conclusively prove their position? Then would it take some sort of a supernatural event, or
okay, we get the idea. Actually.
I think, that supernatural one is important. I think it's important to note that I wouldn't need definite 100% conclusive proof that God exists. Just like I don't need 100% conclusive evidence that Japan exists. I have a fair bit of evidence that it does, and so, I've got enough evidence, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, okay, I'll go with that one. Same with God. Now, God is a pretty big jump. So I'm going to need a little more evidence than, just, ooh, look, here's a picture in a book. And so I would need a little bit more. Yeah, something on the supernatural side that has no other explanation, that would be nice. God could always just come down and just, put the belief in my head and say, there you go. And so, that's the easiest one of them all.
But then how would you know he did that? That could be Satan for
Exactly. That could just be drugs, too. And outside that, it's usually a two-pronged question, actually. I mean, now, you may not have been going here, but a lot of people will say, if you believe in God, then what would happen then? Well, I would have a lot of questions for him. Again, why is there evil in the world? Why do bad things happen? What about that, whole Joshua thing in the Bible where you wiped out 30 cities? Assuming that I had found some evidence and now I believed in God, I have some serious questions for the guy to try and answer, because he's done some really nasty stuff in the past, apparently, and I'd like to see some answers to that. I think what I would really need for me to start looking in that direction seriously is some good answers to arguments. Again, go back to the problem of evil. They throw out free will, they throw out a couple other things like that, but they don't stand up. I would like to have some really good, sound arguments against the problem of evil.
But then remembering, of course, that the problem of evil is only a problem if the God you're promoting has the three omnis, right?
Exactly.
Omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, right?
Exactly.
Problem of evil is not a problem for, like, the God of deism.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all.
Exactly.
Right? So, I liked that point you brought up. That was a really good point about,
I do it once in a while.
Well, you do quite frequently, but you made an extraordinarily good one, and in fact, I'm going to take credit for it right now. Well, the whole preponderance of evidence issue versus just 100% right in your face. God materializes in front of you, shakes your hand, says, "Hi, I'm God, and here's my business card, and here's my social security and my driver's license." No, instead, but okay, for example, take like scientific theories, right? Evolution, big bugaboo for, many religious fundamentalists, right? We don't have one item of evidence, or even two or three items of evidence that scientists or biologists can point to and see, that's it, that makes it ironclad, okay? But what we have, so there's no real one or two, pieces of evidence that that scientific theory or any other scientific theory relies upon. But what biologists have, and geologists and paleontologists, is what you have is ultimately a preponderance of evidence from a number of different scientific fields that, when taken together, all support each other sufficiently well that you can say this theory is sound. That's what you have. Yeah. And so you don't just have, like, there's no smoking gun for evolution. There's no smoking gun for, for a great many scientific theories. And so that's a very good point. It would be nice if you just had sort of a preponderance of evidence that pointed to some kind of creator of a supernatural origin. Yeah. But then at that point, I would get back to definitions.
Yeah.
What is it that, what is this being that the believer wants me to believe in? And then let's say we have established the being's actual existence, why then should I think of this being as, what is it that makes this being a god?
Yeah.
Like let's say
my worship.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I mean, if we were to, like Q from Star Trek, right? The guy who can disappear and do magic and seems to be able to do everything that when people talk about a god, can do, right? Can alter people's realities and make them experience stuff that he.
But in the words of the previous caller, was a butthole.
Yeah, right. So, so that's right. So he, what is the difference between just some incredibly all-powerful alien and a god, other than how you choose to react to that?
Exactly.
Being. So it's a really difficult question. But we've gotten that. I mean, a lot of before. I mean, some believers will try to hit us with that as a big stumper. It's like, well, what could I possibly show you? And we have to admit that it's a tough one. But but that is why again, it's why we're atheists, right? Yeah. In the absence of any easy to put together collection of evidence that would point us to, in the direction of thinking, yes, the only way to explain stuff is through invisible magic beings, we choose to refrain from believing in them. Yeah. But excellent questions. Thanks.
Okay, well, I know you guys have further callers.
Well, we're going to try to take another person or two in the last 10 minutes, but I hope to see you again.
I hope to be back, I'll continue watching the show, and you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Take care.
All right.
And Steve is on too. Hi.
How you doing?
We're great. How you doing?
I'd like to share a couple thoughts with you. I'll try to be quick, but it's a few thoughts on atheism, atheist and God.
Okay.
I think in the 80s I was an atheist. I was a very technical-minded. I always wanted proof. I'm like y'all. I wanted the proof. And something along happened where I heard the right things. I was drawn to the right situation where I realized I didn't need the proof anymore. And so I'm not saying I had a religious experience because I don't believe in organized religion, but I did have a moving towards an understanding that there is a God in my mind, and that God doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. It's up to us that we want to learn about Him. It's not a two-way street. I think it's a one-way street where we go towards wanting to know more, and then things happen. Like, I don't believe that coincidences are coincidences. I think they're timings that can happen, whereas I think atheists believe that's just coincidences. But let me summarize what I'm saying in a nutshell.
Sure. Okay.
I hope that most atheists eventually meet that right person that says the right thing to them, that makes them finally realize that, yeah, there is, and then you understand it, and you don't have to question it because you just know. And then things start to seem to happen that tell you more and more. But God is cool. God just lays back there and lets you do whatever you want. He doesn't care if you're an atheist. He doesn't care if you're a Wiccan or Satanist or a Christian. He lets you do what you want, and that's what He does. So it's really up to you. It's not up to Him. So maybe one day y'all will be drawn in that way, and maybe you won't. And that's kind of the way I think it works.
The main problem I have with that is you were saying earlier that you came to a point where you didn't need evidence anymore.
Correct.
For me, that almost sounds like you don't need the evidence. Someone said the right thing, and it just made sense.
That's correct. It was the right person that had the right explanation of physics, science,
and I can understand that.
Well, I'd love to hear what I know we don't have time right now, but I'd certainly love to hear what that was.
Yeah, I've got a lot of again, there are moral arguments. Why doesn't God stop rape? Why doesn't God stop earthquakes?
Because
you know,
he gives
and again,
people free will to write about it.
Yeah, and we talked about
free
will before. I'm talking about more of a broad thing here. I've got the problem, you know, if he is the God of the Bible, why the book of Joshua? Why did he wipe out 30 cities and do all these things?
But our caller here is saying that's not who God is.
I think that could have happened, but that was man's interpretation.
Well,
but again, the main point is that I have a lot of questions, both morally, philosophically, evidence. You know, why are there, you know, dinosaur bones if dinosaurs were never around type thing, and things like that. Now, if somebody just came up to me and, you know, they just, you know, had some kind of really good line and that just convinced me, then that sounds like my brain is just turning off. If I just say, okay.
Well, even at this point, I can't tell you evidence. It's what they call the faith that you know you're right. And until something hits you
but again,
you won't have
that's scary, though. That's scary. I don't like just believing.
Yeah. See, because the faith that you know you're right is what, you know, and I'm certainly not, you know, putting you in this camp, right? But that's the kind of thing that, like, you know, the 9/11 terrorists and the cyanide drinking cultists all possessed, right? So I don't think that faith in our culture is extolled as this wonderful virtue, and I really don't think it should be. And so, but just to get right back down to it, you know, again, if I were to hear this this argument that you got from this this person that you spoke to that you found extremely convincing, well then, all I can say in response to that is, well, if I ever get a chance to hear that argument, I will only be able to judge it at the time I hear it.
I'm sure you'll have that opportunity in a different type of person in their own way at the right time.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Okay. But in the end, I would have to say that if you are basically, you seem to have accepted what is referred to as the God of deism, which is God doesn't care, right? He made everything and then he just sits back and lets you do what he wants. And if that's the God that you think exists, okay, that's fine for you. My view of a God like that would be, well then, you know, who cares?
Well, I think he's a God of love and forgiveness, as they say, and that he doesn't have to prove anything because, you know, it's up to you to go to him, not for him to come to you.
Yeah, but again, you can use that argument about any sort of mythical being you could name. I mean, you know, you could say it's not up to the, you know, unicorns, you know, to prove to me that they really exist. It's up to me to go out and wander through the woods for years and years hunting unicorns to find them. Yeah. You know, you could use that argument to justify belief in any sort of thing. So I don't think that's quite good at strong
another
enough.
argument of just believing. How far up the chain do you have to go to where you can just take what they say and be happy with it?
Well,
God wiped out a lot of people apparently in the Bible. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, but we're not on the Christian God with this caller.
I have heard many arguments from born-again Christians and this and that, and nobody ever hit me right, but just the right person at the right time, and then another person, it seemed to escalate when I was open, and then they were there, and it just happened, and now there's no question in my mind that there is this presence.
Well, if we were to encounter that person, we would certainly give them an audience, but they would probably encounter our critical thinking responses. But
we appreciate this. Just think about that. There may be a person you might meet later that does.
Who knows?
Right time.
We're out of time, but we appreciate your call. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Call us back anytime. Hi, Mary. We got like a minute.
Hey guys, I know. I'll make this real short. Well, on the last caller, he could use the same argument to be an atheist, but. I mean, he just chooses to believe in a God.
Or to prove unicorns. But anyway.
The other thing is, what you were talking about earlier with intellectualism with the earlier caller. Why don't Christians or other people who believe in God necessarily make good decisions even though they may be smart? Well, a good example of that is faith-based initiatives.
Oh.
You know, I would think that, personally as an atheist, I don't like those programs because obviously they don't coincide with my beliefs, and that they're forcing them down the throats of, you know, non-believers and then people who would rather not believe in anything for whatever reason. But anyway, I just thought that was an example of something that you don't have to be an intellectual. I mean, you can be an intellectual and still come up with the wrong plan to solve the world's problems.
Yeah,
sure. Yes, especially if you are filtering all of your ideas through a belief system you've already got.
Yes.
That tells you you're right. It takes an intellectual person to come up with a really great dumb idea.
Yes.
Very so hope to see more of you around, Mayor.
Yeah, it's good seeing y'all.
Yes. So thanks for calling and thanks for the input. That's terrific. Okay.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay. Folks, those of you who didn't get in, and we are out of time. Do not forget tv@atheist-community.org. There it is at the bottom of your screen. Viewer feedback email. Send us one. Shoot us one, and we will respond to you. We answer all of them. If you got a question, if you got a real stumper for us. Hit us with it, and we'll get back to you. Good letters, we read them on the air. Don't forget reruns of this program. We're live today, but if you're watching us on a Tuesday, you're watching a rerun, which is why nobody answered the phone. Reruns are Tuesday at 4:30 till 6. I want to thank our crew, and as always, and Ashley for some terrific work. Good input on the book, too. I hope to borrow that, maybe, if you get done with it.
Yeah,
So,
I'd like to go over a little bit of it on the show, possibly in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah.
So tell about, what are the Adventist, Baptist.
Absolutely.
So.
It'll be worth it. So Thursday is Darwin Day, so happy birthday,
Yes.
Chuck. And so other than that, we'll see you next time, okay? Next Sunday right here, 4:30 p.m. Theists, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. Bye-bye, everyone. There goes our love rings to Austin.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
We love you, Austin. Oh, going back.